Welcome to the deep dive. News have emerged that the Supreme Court requested that counsel submit copies of all High Court updation judgments from Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi to the bench. I am Priya Chakraborty, and my co-host is Anil Agrawal.
Interesting but not surprising because if you followed a legal battle that spans years and which affects the financial future of hundreds of thousands of retirees, you instinctively know that judicial procedural updates are crucial in a landmark lawsuit, such as the MC Singla pension updation case.
Oh, absolutely. And tracking them, trying to filter the noise from the signal, it can be equally difficult and exhausting.
True words. And for you, the listener, the banking elders who have been tracking the bank pension updation case for nearly 2 decades, basically a battle for justice and fairness regarding retirement calculations. Every little procedural step the Supreme Court takes feels monumental.
Yeah. I also have a sense that after the next Supreme Court miscellaneous hearing, which we forecasted for the end of October 2025, it seems highly probable the Supreme Court will cross the Rubicon on the updation case. This is what I inferred from the request by the SC for copies of the judgment from those 3 influential regional high courts.
Absolutely. Consequently, our focus today is very narrow, but critical. We are not wading through old news today, just laser focusing on the very narrow judicial procedural request by the Supreme Court for judgments from Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi.
The bank elders and our other audience need the precise distilled truth about the latest movement. You need to know what's actually happening, and this is what today's podcast is about.
We are here to analyze one single highly specific procedural action the Supreme Court took after the arguments concluded. And this action, well, it tells us exactly where their focus is right now, before they deliver their final word.
Yeah, and just to set the stage properly, we are discussing the appeal, formerly known as SSLPC, number 05561, 2016, the MC Singla case.
The stakes here are high, because pension updation is essentially the fight to ensure that bank pensioners who retired many years ago are aligned or have parity with the updated salary and pay scales of those currently working in banking.
Let no one, especially the folks at IBA, be in any doubt whatsoever that retirees' fight for updation is a big deal.
Indeed it is. It's a long-standing, very complex legal challenge fought across various high courts for years.
It's a huge financial and legal fight. And the biggest milestone we need to confirm right out of the gate is that the argument phase, the submission phase, that's over.
That's right. The arguments in the Supreme Court have officially concluded. That major procedural step took place back on October 9th, 2025.
October 9. Okay.
Which, in the life cycle of a Supreme Court case this complex, is a major signal that the decision-making process is now strictly internal. The talking by the parties is done.
Right, finished. And once arguments wrap up, the whole world kind of holds its breath, doesn't it? Waiting for the reserve date or the pronouncement date.
Exactly.
Which brings us immediately to the most frequent question on the lips of every retirees and the families affected by updation case. When is the next hearing?
Okay, yeah. This is where we have to apply some caution and clarity. The next hearing date is currently marked as pending.
Pending, okay.
The Supreme Court hasn't issued an official confirmation or notification yet.
I know there has been considerable activity online and in community reports suggesting a specific date, though. We should probably address that tentative date directly.
Indeed, there is a specific unofficial suggestion, or maybe report circulating, that the next date might be October 29th, 2025.
Now, it is absolutely vital that you, the listener, understand this is not an official lock-in date. It's not confirmed.
It's a potential target date, perhaps, or maybe a suggested date from counsel based on procedural expectations.
So we need to stress that while October 29th, 2025 is a date to keep an eye on, it absolutely cannot be relied upon until official confirmation comes through the Supreme Court.
Correct.
Okay, what's fascinating here, and this is what we really want to dig into, is that the Supreme Court wasn't just sitting idle after arguments concluded. They took a very proactive and specific step before they finalized their review.
That's the critical nugget of this deep dive, really.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, after both sides had finished their final submissions, made their cases,
The Supreme Court made an extremely, I'd say, unusual procedural request. It tells us they are doing one final targeted review of precedent before they rule. The next hearing isn't just any date. They're setting a date for a major announcement that will likely serve as the penultimate date to conclude years of litigation.
okay, let's unpack this then, because normally when arguments conclude, you might expect the court to just, finalize their notes, maybe start drafting the verdict.
Right.
Why would they halt that process or interrupt it to request more documents? Doesn't that suggest something was maybe missing or potentially contradictory in the materials already presented?
That's precisely the implication. Yes. The court requested that counsel submit copies of all relevant High Court judgments related to this MS Single Bank Pension Updation appeal.
Okay?
Now, that itself isn't totally unusual, but the specificity of the request is what really stands out here.
And the specificity is the whole reason we're doing this deep dive, right? They weren't just asking for a general sweep of High Court rulings from everywhere.
No, not at all.
What 3 jurisdictions did they specifically target?
The request zeroed in on 3 specific regional high courts. Counsel was explicitly instructed to provide copies of all relevant judgments from Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi.
Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi. Why those 3? I mean, the entire bank pension update issue has played out across the country in various high courts.
Exactly.
Singling out just Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi, after hearing final arguments, it really suggests the judges maybe encountered some kind of interpretational conflict, or perhaps 3 different interpretations that they absolutely must reconcile before issuing a nationwide ruling.
That is the most logical deduction, I think. Think of the Supreme Court as needing to issue a single binding national precedent, right?
Yeah.
If these 3 critical high courts, and they're crucial, all with large pensioner populations, significant litigation history on this topic, if they have contradictory methodologies for calculating pension updation, the SC simply cannot move forward without resolving that variance first.
But let's just play devil's advocate for a second here. Couldn't the request for these specific judgments just be, routine due diligence, making sure their files are absolutely 100% complete before the final drafting?
It's a fair question.
Why elevate this procedural step to a sign of potential conflict?
Because of the timing. That's the key. The request was made after arguments concluded.
After? Oh,
Meaning the legal points have already been argued or theoretically settled. If this were just routine due diligence, you'd expect it would have been requested weeks or months ago, back during the main submission phase.
right.
The post-argument timing strongly suggests the judges, while actually deliberating amongst themselves, encountered an issue, a sticking point that relies heavily on how these regional courts handle the core mathematical, or maybe the legal entitlement question.
So the crucial fight isn't just about whether pensioners are entitled to updation, but maybe more critically, how that entitlement is calculated.
Exactly.
And those 3 high courts, Jaipur, Chandigarh, Delhi, they might hold the key to conflicting calculation methods.
Precisely. For instance, did the Jaipur High Court ruling interpret the base salary structure differently from how the Delhi High Court ruling did? When the Supreme Court issues its judgment, it must standardize the formula nationwide.
That makes sense.
So by calling for these 3 specific geographical precedents, they are essentially performing a quality control check on the judicial history, making sure the foundational rulings they might rely upon were sound or at least consistent. They're synthesizing the regional history into a national mandate.
Okay, that detail provides really significant insight into the judicial strategy here. They're ensuring that whatever the final ruling is, it resolves any regional ambiguity and hopefully prevents further litigation based on those past high court rulings.
It provides immense clarity, actually. It tells you, the listener, that the court is laser-focused on precedent and standardization right now. This procedural request helps ensure the Supreme Court avoids a situation where their final judgment accidentally contradicts a well-established, though perhaps flawed interpretation in a major jurisdiction like Delhi or Chandigarh.
Okay, so let's recap the facts then. Arguments are done. The three critical High Court judgments, Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi, are being specifically gathered by the court now.
Correct.
And the next hearing date, potentially October 29th, is still officially pending SC confirmation.
That accurately sums up the current state. And importantly, the decision itself is not yet formally reserved, meaning they haven't necessarily locked the final date in stone yet.
Oh,
They seem to be using this time for this final crucial synthesis of these specific regional precedents.
so for those waiting for news often anxiously, what's the best strategy for staying informed and, importantly, filtering out the inevitable speculation that comes with such a long wait?
Yeah, prudence is definitely necessary, especially because that unofficial date of October 29th, 2025 is still floating around out there.
Right.
Pensioners are strongly advised to rely solely on official confirmation. Our sources, and just standard advice in these situations, point to recognized representative bodies or the authorized counsel for the petitioners.
Can you name those recognized bodies specifically? Giving the listener a clear, actionable source of truth is really vital here.
Certainly, you should rely on updates provided by official associations, like the All India Pensioners Association, or IPA.
IEPA.
They're typically the authoritative source for verified status updates, rather than relying on, hearsay or social media reports about suggested dates. Sticking to those organizational updates helps maintain focus and, frankly, minimizes the anxiety generated by misinformation.
That seems like the ultimate practical takeaway right now. Rely on IIPA or authorized counsel for confirmation of the next hearing date.
Exactly. So just to quickly summarize our deep dive for you.
Arguments in the MS Singla Bank Pension Updation Appeal concluded back in October 9, 2025.
Yes,
The Supreme Court has sort of paused to gather the complete judicial history, making that very specific demand for judgments from Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi High Courts.
got it.
The next hearing date is tentatively suggested for October 29th, 2025, and this is the big but, this remains pending official confirmation.
And this highly specific procedural step, asking for those three sets of judgments, that seems to be the single most important detail in understanding the current status of the case. It's a sign the judges are actively seeking consistency where regional courts might have diverged.
It definitely is. And it raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider as you wait for the final pronouncement. The very fact that the Supreme Court, having concluded arguments, specifically called for the detailed history from only Jaipur, Chandigarh, and Delhi, well, it strongly suggests that the final outcome will be heavily influenced by how these regional high courts previously interpreted or ruled on the core issues.
Oh, the provocative thought is, what unique legal or perhaps mathematical conflict, specific to those three jurisdictions, is the Supreme Court trying to resolve or standardize right now?
And what does the resolution of that specific conflict tell us about the likely methodology the Supreme Court will impose for pension updation nationwide? That synthesis of specific regional judicial history, that really seems to be the final intellectual hurdle before the court delivers its final binding decision for everyone involved.
So, that's a wrap for today. Goodbye for now to our listeners. Please like, share, clip, and subscribe. We continue to watch the Supreme Court website as keenly as you are. So let's hope the next October hearing date is confirmed very soon.